Okay, so the basal ganglia, again, are in some ways kind of misnamed, right? Because we're deep inside, subcortical in the central nervous system. And these are nuclei that we are talking about. We're talking about a set of interconnected nuclei that are localized below, the cortex. They're subcortical nuclei. And typically the word ganglion, right, refers to a clump of gray matter, that you find in the peripheral nervous system, like, one of the autonomic ganglia or something. But because the basal ganglia are so essential for the timing of movement and the initiation of movement and the breaking or stopping of movement, and interestingly, we're now learning thoughts, they were identified a long time ago by neurologists and neurosurgeons who, if you had a problem with your basal ganglia, you came to the attention if you were, lucky or unlucky to be seen by a medical professional at that time. So remember that the degeneration of the substantia nigra, which is a component of the basal ganglia, which feeds into another subset of nuclei in the basal ganglia called the striatum, and releases dopamine, right? That leads to Parkinson's disease, when over 70% or so of those neurons degenerate. So I want you to know the basal ganglia as a very important set of subcortical nuclei that are interconnected with each other. They receive, input from cortex, and they actually then share that information back to cortex, which means they also send their projections via the thalamus. And then the thalamus, reaches cortex. And they have sort of direct, kind of feedback, or, via the thalamus, or I guess indirect to some extent. But that can either put a brake on movement or can, remove the brake on movement. They include the substantia nigra, brainstem nucleus whose neurons release dopamine, in other basal ganglion nuclei, those that are striped or striated, that are called the striatum. So remember the nigrostriatal pathway, right, is that dopaminergic pathway that is involved in the timing of movement, and motivated movements, etc. So the basal ganglia are really, really critically important for movement.